Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, it's Friday Eve. Glad you're here with us. Larry Smith, the Sports IQ, producer Tony Cordaro, editor Josh Ewing as well. Always happy you're with us every day. I am, if you've been following along all this week, I am back in Atlanta getting ready for the WNBA on Ion show tomorrow night. Great doubleheader. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But yeah, back from just a great week. I tell you, the folks at the Ilokai Hotel in Honolulu, right there in Waikiki Beach, Royal Lahaina Resort in Maui, there in Kanapali Beach, was just fantastic trip. Really enjoyed like I said the other day. I mean, I never stop and just exhale. And I actually did that, and it was great. I also got bored by yesterday, so couldn't get back here. Glad that we got a chance to spend our time together. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, nothing else to do except go sit at the beach, which is not too bad. So anyway, okay, so we got a couple of great guests. Alessandra Pontbriand coming up, talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars in a moment. So we continue to count down the NFL. We'll talk more NFL in just a bit as well. And also Kevin Brockway, our friend from the Gainesville Sun, talking about the Florida Gators. And it's one of those stories that this is one of those great stories there because, when we all were talking a year ago on the other show, man, Coach Napier was dead man walking, right? I mean, this is a guy, coming off the first season, it didn't go well, losing record, was a brutal 12-team schedule. And yet they came out, I think they went 8-5 and made a bowl game. And so things looking good right now. They're ranked in everybody's top 25. So he has survived the storm down there, and we'll see if they can kind of make it happen with the Gators going this 2025 season. Producer Tony talking with our friend Kevin. Come up in just a bit. Okay, let's get some headlines for you really quickly. Let's talk some Benjamins here. Those green things in your wallet that you never seem to have enough of? Yeah, some folks have plenty. If you know them, ask them for a loan. Let's take Kansas, for example. University of Kansas announcing that alumnus David Booth pledged $300 million to support athletics and campus development. It includes a $75 million gift aimed at funding the next phase of the Gateway District and renovations to the stadium, football stadium that has his name on it already. The remainder expected to provide long-term support for KU athletics. Booth, a Lawrence native and also founder of Dimensional Fund Advisors, has a long history of giving to Kansas. His previous contributions include a $50 million gift back in 2017 that helped launch renovations at the football stadium then, and again, named in his honor. So for you Jayhawk fans, rock chalk cha-ching. And by the way, we're not done talking about Benjamins. How about 6.1 billion Benjamins? Somewhere Dr. Evil, his eyes are rolling. That's the number the ownership of the Boston Celtics will receive for selling the team to the investor group led by Bill Chisholm after the league approved that sale on Wednesday. That comes out nearly 5 months after the Celtics ownership agreed to sell their franchise to Chisholm for $6.1 billion. That's a record for the most a North American professional sports franchise has ever sold for. When the deal is finalized, Chisholm, who outbid at least two other groups, will take ownership of at least 51% of the team. He'll have full control by 2028 at a price that could bring the franchise's total value to $7.3 billion, according to the Associated Press. Okay, we're not done yet. University of Tennessee announcing they're leaving Nike, heading to Adidas. The value of that contract with Adidas, $100 million. Wow. So 3 stories about money. Total take about $6.5 billion. Sports is a printing press, folks, for Benjamins. Crazy. On the fields of battle, not baseball, but the court, WNBA. Some fans went to the Sky Sun matchup, and yes, a WWE match broke out. About 6:35 left in the second quarter. Sun up 27-21. Connecticut's Bria Hartley and Chicago's Rebecca Allen jockeying for position under the basket on a rebound attempt. Allen appeared to push Hartley in the back. Hartley didn't appreciate it, shoved Allen down to the ground. Allen grabbing Hartley's jersey as she fell on the court. Referees tried to separate the players involved. Sky guard Ariel Atkins jumps into her teammate's defense, pushing Hartley, appearing to make contact with an official in the process. When order was restored, all three, Hartley, Atkins, and Allen, were all ejected from the contest. By the way, in case you're wondering, the Sun actually won 71-62 to snap a 5-game losing skid. Okay, that's our headlines. We've got more baseball news, NFL news coming up. Our producer, Tony, has our first guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. We are lucky to be joined today. We're going to talk a little Jacksonville Jaguars football. Alessandra Pontbriand is a sports reporter for Jacks.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, News for Jacks, or
News
we
for
call it
Jacks.
Channel 4, yes.
Newsforjacks.com. All right, great. So, Alessandra, let's kind of dive into this team a little bit. First of all, you've covered them for a bit here. What went wrong last year in Jacksonville that made the coaching change needed? People were kind of high on Doug Pederson coming in after what he'd done with the Eagles. Yeah, it kind of fell apart there. But they thought he would be the one to help get Trevor Lawrence back on track. It never really happened.
No, it really didn't. But I will say, I mean, Trevor Lawrence was still, he was drafted. It was the Urban Meyer kind of year here, which was, I wasn't here yet, but it sounded like it was a disaster. And then Doug Pederson came in. That first year, they did go to the playoffs. So it was a good season. And then the next two seasons, in 2023, they started at 8-4, and then it was just a complete collapse. And I think at that time, it was a very young roster. And they were having so much success. And they were, they're being, scouted as like the number one team in the AFC. And, I think they let all of that get to them. And then it was a total collapse. They fired Mike Caldwell on the defensive staff. And at that point, I didn't think Mike Caldwell was really the issue. So I was a little surprised when they fired him. And then they bring in a whole new defense. And it was just awful last year. And last year just was all around a horrible year for the Jaguars, which is upsetting for these fans because they really never have anything good to root for. And listen, I grew up a Giants fan, and right now I'm struggling too. So I understand what the Jaguars are feeling like. But yeah, last year was just dysfunction all around. You could tell, even when we would walk into the facility, like there was just a bad vibe around it. And it was disappointing because Doug Pederson, such a nice guy. Like, he's the first NFL coach I've ever covered. He was so kind. He would always give us the information that we needed. It just didn't work out, obviously. And now we have Liam Coen, and we'll see how that goes. Right now, it seems like everyone has talked about how great he is, how great this coaching staff is. There's a great vibe in the locker room and in the office. So, yeah, I'm hoping this season can be a turnaround.
Well, there is a lot of talent on that team. Yeah. Let's start with the offense. Trevor Lawrence was number one overall pick. He's had some really good years. He's put up some really good numbers. They've just never put it all together. Now he's got some targets out there on the outside, which should help him. They've got a good running game. Tell us a little bit about that offense and how it's going to progress this year.
Yeah, so we'll start with Trevor. So he's in his fifth year, which is crazy. This is his fifth year in the league. But, I think he is a really good quarterback. I do think he has that. Obviously, they've had offensive line issues the past couple of years, which makes it more difficult for the QB. This offseason, he's talked about wanting to work on his footwork, and that's what Liam Coen has talked about a lot, is that they're trying to improve his footwork. He's coming back from his injury from last year. So this Steelers game, he only played in the first drive, but that was his first game action in a long time. I think that probably is a little nerve-wracking a little bit, just returning from something. But I think he looks good. And, like you just mentioned, the targets, you have Travis Hunter, who's the second overall pick. You have Brian Thomas Jr., who has had a phenomenal rookie season. And now you have Dyami Brown, who's coming in with a little bit of veteran presence too. And he's had such a stellar training camp. So, if you can't get to them and they can't go score a ton of touchdowns, we have an issue. But I think this will be a much improved offense. And then when you look at the tight end, you have Brenton Strange, who was the backup for Evan Ingram the past couple of years. But now this is his first year that he's really taking over the starting role. And ever since Liam Coen and Grant Udinski got here as the offensive coordinator, they've talked about how they have so much confidence in Brenton Strange. So he should be able to take the next step. Then when you look at your running backs, you have Travis Etienne, you have Tank Bigsby, and then you have Bashal Tune, who they also just drafted. And that kid is super fast. And I've been really impressed with what he has been able to do in his first training camp as well.
When you look at that offense, and we've talked about, everybody's talked about Travis Hunter and what he brings. I've had kind of covered him since he was in high school. We talked before this interview, he went to my daughter's high school, so I know a little bit about him. And everybody I've ever talked to and who's met him, who's talked to him, who's dealt with him, said he is just the greatest kid that they've ever been around. Deion Sanders always talked about what a great kid he was, what a great person he is. What has your dealings been like with him as he's come into this rookie campaign?
You know what? If you were just talking to him, you would have no clue that he is like a phenomenal athlete. He's so down to earth, and it's nothing's ever too like big for him. Like the lights are never too bright. He always is very calming, and he's just, he answers the question and just moves on. And he's a really great guy. I mean, it's just insane to think about at his young age how he can be so good. But it just doesn't look like anything's too much. And I remember we were doing a press conference with him, and I asked him, I was like, do you get a headache when you're going from your, wide receiver room all the way over to your DB room? Like, is there ever like a headache just completely switching? And he said, no, he's been doing it for his whole life. So, it's not much different for him. And then, I asked him, is it like a flip? Like, do you have to like flip a switch in your brain? He said, not necessarily, but you kind of do have to get in like a different mindset as a defensive player than as an offensive player. But he said, warming up for practice each day, no matter if he's going to be on offense or defense, or, in some practices for training camp, he's switched and he's played both. He says it's really nothing crazy. It's just what he's been doing. I mean, he did all of his time at Colorado, and now he's just doing it here with the Jaguars. So it's really impressive to see, because we look at these NFL athletes who are so phenomenal at their one position. And then we see him and he's like, well, he's a starting wide receiver, and he really could be a starting DB here too. But, they're focusing more on the offense with him, but it's pretty phenomenal to see.
Do you think that as the season progresses, do you think we'll see more of him on defense, or is it going to be kind of one of those things where they'll have special packages on the field for him where they may want to use him maybe 20, 30 snaps a game? The NFL grind can be a little bit tougher than college. I just don't see a player being able to hold up playing as many snaps as he would have to play if he played full time both ways. What's the feeling right there in camp?
Yeah, right now they definitely are focusing him on offense, even though he is practicing on defense quite a bit. But I think he obviously has said it. He wants to be a starting wide receiver and a starting quarterback in the league. But right now, like I said, they're focusing him on offense. In the preseason game against the Steelers, he came in as with the second string defense, and he played, I think it was 2 drives in that game, and then 1 drive on offense. So yeah, I think right now, just like you said, like the NFL or college to the NFL is so different. It's so much more fast paced, and he's never played an NFL season yet. So at the end of the season, he may be exhausted, like usually you see from some of the rookies. But right now he is focusing on offense, going to play defense, but I don't think full time just yet. But maybe at the end of the season, if he feels good and the coaching staff gives him the A-OK, he probably will play, or maybe will play, both sides.
We're talking with Alessandra Pontbriand. She is a sports reporter for News for Jacks, talking about the Jaguars this season coming up. Defense kind of had a rough outing in that first game against Pittsburgh. Coach said, we're not worried. We've got everything covered. What's the feeling around there? What do they need to improve to be a solid defensive unit this year?
Yeah, so Anthony Campanelli, who's the defensive coordinator, just spoke to us Tuesday after practice, and he mentioned that communication was a big issue in that game. And we've heard that, for a couple of years now, that's, the communication with the defense is kind of lacking. And listen, it's the first preseason game. He kind of reassured us that it's only one preseason game. We're still trying to install this defense, But Liam Coen said maybe it's kind of a hiccup of, still, with the mindset of last defense. They're now learning this one. They may have gotten it. Now it's the first game that they've played. So maybe they kind of fell back into the mindset from last year. But listen, I talked to Dewey Wingert. He's a safety for the Jaguars and a big guy in special teams Tuesday after practice as well. And he mentioned that they're building, a tough resilient defense, but they're still in the building phases of it. It's not going to be perfect. And of course, we all hope that it was going to be perfect against the Steelers, but, it's still building blocks. And we didn't see the first team defense for much of the game. We were talking about, Trayvon Walker and Boye Luakin. Those are Tyson Campbell. Those are the main defensive guys at each level. We just didn't get to see them entirely. We saw most of the second string and third string defense. So I think everyone needs to take a deep breath. I was a little nervous too. We were all like thinking in the press box, like, what's going on? Kind of gave us a flashback of last season and how, offensive we're just able to tear apart the Jaguars defense. But I think, like I said, it's only the first preseason game. They have 3 more weeks for the regular season. Hopefully they can get that communication figured out and we can see a better defense come week 1 against the Panthers.
The Jaguars may have a secret weapon that most of our listeners don't know about, because something happened in that preseason game that's never happened in NFL history. Tell us a little bit about that and what you've seen of this player. Can he replicate some of that in the regular season?
So Cam Little is the Jaguars kicker. This is his second year in the league. He kicked a 70-yard field goal. And it wasn't just a 70-yard field goal. He kicked a 40, a 41, then a 70-yard field goal, and then a 52-yard field goal. And he is electric. I mean, he's just such a nice guy, so down to earth, so relaxed, so chill. He gives back a lot in the community here. He's just such a nice guy, but it was like nothing to him. Like he just went and kicked it. And, he was very excited after the game. He talked to the media and, he was telling us how, he was so excited. And he told Liam Coen, listen, let me go out there and let me kick it. And Liam Coen said, sure, if you want to go try and kick a 70-yard field goal, go ahead. And he did it. And it was perfect. And I was talking to, like I said, I talked to Dewey Wingard after practice Tuesday, and he's good friends with Cam Little. And he said, Cam Little's kind of like his younger brother. And when he kicked the 52-yard field goal, that Cam thought that he just like completely botched it. And it was like a horrible kick, but it was a 52-yard field goal. I mean, that's like pretty impressive. But he did say, now fans are, and maybe even his coaching staff are going to expect him to be able to kick a 70-yard field goal in the regular season just because he did in the preseason. So we'll see. But I'm not surprised. We've seen him do that during practice like it's nothing. Like when I see him kick, from 50 or over, like I just think, oh, okay, it's just, Cam Little kick. But when you think about it, you're like, wait, that's a really good field. I mean, that's insanely impressive. So hopefully we can see that maybe late in the game. I would be shocked to see that in the first or second quarter of the game in the regular season. But hopefully he can come through big for the Jaguars in the regular season and help us with those long kicks.
I mean, that can be a really big weapon because, let's face it, the NFL, most games are decided by less than 7 points these days. The NFL is a tightly packed community. Even poor teams generally are still in these games. They just don't have those 2 or 3 plays to get them over the hump. With something like Cam Little, you can mask some of those flaws and still get over the hump.
Oh yeah. I mean, special team, my older brother played college football and he always talked about how important special teams were. And, growing up watching football, I didn't think anything of it, but the Jaguars have been in so many tight games over the past 2 years that I've covered them. And it was the kicker last year was Cam Little, who would come up big and he would score, the deciding, field goal at that point. And like you said, it's just only a few points usually decide these NFL games. And it is the special teams player or the kicker who has all the weight of everyone in the stadium and their whole team on their shoulders to make sure they kick it. But, obviously he's very, very good. He was phenomenal in college. He played at Arkansas. He was really, really good there. And, the Jaguars drafted him late in the draft last year. So he's been a great addition for the Jaguars.
Give us 2 things that you want to see the Jaguars improve, get ready for. What are 2 things that you need to see to know that this team is ready for the regular season and can make some noise come the regular season?
Over the next 2 preseason games?
Yeah, between now and the start of the regular season, either in camp or in the games.
I think on offense, I want to see. So Brian Thomas Jr. has had some issues this camp with just a lot of drops. I think it seems like he's just in his head. Liam Coen has talked about how he has all the confidence in the world for Brian. Brian puts a lot of pressure on himself. Mind you, by the way, great guy. Such a nice guy. But, I would like to see that corrected. I don't know what he needs to do mentally to get out of his head, but hopefully he can fix his drops. Offensive line, I want him to figure out who the 5 starting offensive linemen are, and I want them to be best friends and figure it out and get together and protect Trevor, so that Trevor can have a little bit more time to figure out what he wants to do. So on offense, that's what I would like to do. Just fix kind of Brian Thomas Jr.'s mental aspect, and then offensive line, let's get them together. On defense, the communication obviously needs to be the biggest thing. We saw it, in the preseason game. We saw it all last season, but of course, as a new defensive coordinator, I want them to be on one, communication line, figure it out. And I just want to see, offensives not be able to just run all over them and do whatever they want. I want to see, limit the, deep passes down the field, stack the quarterback, I want more pressure on the quarterback, which you kind of saw in the Steelers preseason game. You had Dwan Smoot, who sacked Mason Rudolph, and Danny Sturgal, who's a free agent this year, undrafted free agent. He came and sacked one of their backup quarterbacks later in the game too. So we see some, movement toward the quarterback, but let's just get the communication issues figured out.
Alessandra Pontbriand, News for Jacks, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there a social media place where some Jaguars fans can give you a follow and keep in touch with everything that's happening in Jacksonville?
Yes. My last name is so difficult, but it's A Pontbriand TV. You probably could just put in News for Jacks, then Alessandra, and it'll pop up. But yeah, A Pontbriand TV on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram and Twitter. So you can follow me there. But thank you. This was so much fun.
Appreciate you taking the time. We really enjoyed having you on. We will take a quick break, and Sports IQ will be right back.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, welcome back to NFL News. Shedeur Sanders now may not start for the Browns when they visit the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles on Saturday. The rookie from Colorado suffering an oblique injury and a non-contact incident, I should say. He had just been announced a starter for the second preseason game. Looked pretty good in the opener as the starter. It appears now maybe he does not start against the Eagles. So we will see. Again, they got a whole ton of quarterbacks there. Just pick another one to go. So we'll see what happens, but kind of hate that. His development looks like it's been pretty good here in this preseason. Okay, some baseball news right now. Do not stand close to any Milwaukee Brewers player right now. They are so hot, you might catch fire. Brew Crew made it 12 wins in a row last night. Another beat down of the Pirates, this time 12-5. The Brewers belting out 12 hits, but only 2 back-to-back fourth-inning doubles by Sal Frelick and Isaac Collins were for extra bases. That's amazing. By the way, Frelick and Joey Ortiz each driving in 2 runs. Collins also had a run, RBI as well. Cubs keeping pace in the NL Central, 4-1 win over Toronto. Rookie right-hander Cade Horton struck out a career-high 8 and 5 2/3 sharp innings to win his 4th straight start. The Cubs trailing those red-hot Brewers by 7.5 games. Remember, at the All-Star break a month ago, the Cubs had a 1-game lead on the Brewers. NL West time, the Padres got a 2-run homer from deadline pickup Ramon Laureano to power the offense. Starter Nick Pivetta allowed just 1 run in 6 2/3 innings as the Padres finished off a sweep of the Giants 11-1. San Diego now with a game lead in the West thanks to the Angels taking care of the Dodgers in LA 6-5. The Angels have been a thorn in the Dodgers side this year, winning all 6 games that the two have played. The guys in Dodger Blue have now lost 5 straight, by the way, overall. Going back to the All-Star thing again, the Dodgers had a 5.5 game lead over the Padres at that time. And again, now they're a game back. LA will host San Diego starting Friday for a 3-game set. We can try to get some of those games back. Seattle and Houston started yesterday, tied for the lead in the AL West. Houston starter Hunter Brown pitched 6 2/3 of stellar ball, his 10th win of the season. Astros over the Red Sox 4-1. Jeremy Pena and Yanir Diaz, each homering for the Victors. Seattle failed to keep pace with Houston. Baltimore beat the Mariners 4-3 on Wednesday. The O's may have found that ace they've been looking for in left-hander Trevor Rogers, who pitched 7 innings of 1-run ball. His ERA now is down to 1.43 in 11 starts. Houston takes that 1-game lead over Seattle in the tight AL West race. We talked with Matt Snyder at CBS Sports a couple of weeks ago. He was saying this is going to be a fun August and September just because of the way that there's no dominant team out there. We're seeing that right now. Even in the AL Central, we're seeing things tighten where the Tigers had just an insurmountable 9-game lead. Not so much. That has been whittled away. It's going to be a fight to the end, it appears, even in the AL Central. Okay, the W last night. We talked about the sun and the sky. Some other action that didn't involve fighting. The Aces seem to be finding their groove at the right time. They down the Liberty 83-77 to get their 5th win in a row. Joel Lloyd, 21 points, 5 3-pointers off the bench. By the way, Vegas, first regular season win over the Liberty since August of 2023. And is there a better story right now than the Liberty's Emma Miesemann? She led New York with 24 points and 10 rebounds. Remember, she was out of the league playing in Europe the last 3 years, was actually that league's MVP all 3 of those seasons. Signed back only just last month with Liberty, and now she has come on an injury replacement. She has come on strong right now. It's just been such a huge piece. They're so deep, that New York team, the defending champs. In Seattle, the Dream riding out the storm. Thank you very much. 85-75 road win. Ryan Howard, 25 points. Alicia Gray had 22 points, 11 rebounds for her second double-double this season to lead the Dream to their 6th straight win. And a big night for Veronica Burton and the Valkyries. They beat the Mystics 88-83. Burton hitting 6 3-pointers and scored 30 points, both career highs. Cecilia Zandalis, I get this all the time. Cecilia Zandelcellini made 6 threes, finished with 20 points as Golden State won their 3rd straight game. Okay, we'll talk Florida Gators with Kevin Brockway up next.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Glad you're still with us here. Producer Tony is with our next guest.
Well, thanks, Larry. And, college football season is inching closer and closer. Seems like it's getting closer every day, thankfully, for all of us college football fans. One of the teams to keep an eye on this season is the Florida Gators. And we are joined now by Kevin Brockway, Florida beat writer for the Gainesville Sun and the Florida Network. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us again. We've had you on before, and you give great information, so we want to pick your brain as we get ready for the Gators season this year.
Yes, my brain is probably a little scrambled right now, but ready for picking, so we can get going. Fall camp started a couple of weeks ago, and already a lot on my plate. Trust me.
How are the Gators looking so far in that fall camp? Obviously, you always like to see a quarterback like DJ Lagway make that next jump. How's he looking in fall camp?
Well, I think one of the themes is they've been a little banged up, unfortunately, and DJ Lagway's offseason certainly has been a big storyline, with regards to, beginning all the way going back to the spring when he did not throw, and then he ramped up, he threw during OTAs, but then a calf issue arose. So he is throwing in drills, but at this point not taking part in 11-on-11s. He didn't take part in the first inter-squad scrimmage this week. So I think that's still the mystery about him ramping up and being ready to go by the opener on August 30th versus Long Island University. another promising young freshman, Dallas Wilson, out with a leg injury. LJ McCray, a guy they were counting on to break out in the pass rush, also out. But, Billy Napier has built a roster through 4 years with a lot of depth. I think they feel pretty good about that going into the season. And certainly on both lines of scrimmage, they've got some all-SEC guys, all-American guys, even in Jake Slaughter in center, and Caleb Banks, who's a projected first-round pick next year at defensive tackle, Tyreek Sapp, and I think a pretty good run game, too. So I think they're going to try to lean on that as DJ Lagway continues to ramp things up, and fingers crossed, get ready for the start of the season.
When you looked at Billy Napier and his time at Florida last year at this time, there were questions: was he going to be around after the third year, depending on what happened? Well, they managed to navigate that schedule, which was brutal and is brutal yet again. It seems like the scheduling gods are not doing the Florida Gators any favors, or Billy Napier.
Sure.
But has he kind of like solidified his position a little bit with the fans and with the Florida, overhead people, so to speak?
Well, I think that 4-game winning streak to close the season bought him a little equity, and there's some positive momentum going into the season after how they played in the Gasparilla Bowl. But I think they're still going to have to prove it. I think the overriding theme of the Billy Napier has been slow starts. Now, listen, I do think, Scott Strickland, this goes back 5 or 6 years ago with trying to forecast the college football playoff. He thought that by ramping up the non-conference schedule, that would help. And we've seen in the case of schools like Indiana, it's kind of been the reverse, right? As far as going the easier path. But, 10 power conference teams again, you got Miami again on the schedule along with Florida State to go with those 8 SEC games. It's going to be really tough. The one advantage that Billy has this season is he doesn't have the big Power 4 school right off the bat like he did the last 3 years with the 2 games against Utah, last year against Miami. You kind of can ease in a little bit with Long Island University and USF before your SEC opener against LSU. So I think that will help. But, make no mistake, because at LSU and at Miami to close the month, I think it would be very beneficial for him to go 3-1 in September instead of 2-2. There'll be a lot of noise in the system if he starts 2-2.
Can they make that next jump in dealing with that schedule? What are the other pieces of the offense outside of DJ Lagway that you're looking forward to seeing, kind of see how they mesh and work with this offensive unit?
Well, Jayden Baugh is a star on the rise. He doesn't get as much attention because of, DJ. But if you look back, that 55-yard touchdown run against LSU really started things in terms of that 4-game win streak. And he's a guy that scored 5 rushing touchdowns in an SEC game against Kentucky. And he and Jacoby Jackson, you've got a pretty good 1-2 punch there. I mean, the duo combined for about 1,200 yards, 14 touchdowns. Those 2 guys can really carry the way in the ground game. And you've got a pretty good offensive line coming back with 4 starters, with, as mentioned, Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber, really good run blocking left tackle, as well as, Najee Harris inside, Damian George inside. Bryce Lovett, who takes over as a starter at right tackle, was an all-SEC freshman last year. So pretty good offensive line, to go into the season in a run game. And if you can do that, control the clock and play good defense, I think, that could buy some time for DJ Lagway, given some of the question marks surrounding him going into the season and how effective he's going to be.
Is the defense looking to be a strength for Florida this year? They played really well down the stretch last year. Can they kind of carry that momentum into the regular season this year?
Well, so far the defense has been very good in camp, probably ahead of the offense in terms of the first scrimmage. That's how Billy Napier described it. You're starting to see some young linebackers emerge, Aaron Childs, Miles Graham. You're going to see a lot of them, I think, on the field as sophomores as well. And Jaden Woods, this true freshman on the edge rush, has really opened some eyes just with his overall athletic ability, his pass rush. And George Gumbs coming back too, had 5 sacks last year. They really affected the quarterback a lot more in the second half of last season. I think there's still some questions on the back end. Bryce Thornton and Jordan Castell coming back as safeties, but you don't really have that much depth behind them. You got to hope that those 2 stay healthy because you got a lot of inexperience back there in the secondary. And Devin Moore, their number 1 cover corner, needs to prove that he can stay healthy. He's been really beset by injuries the last couple of years, but he feels like he's bigger, stronger, and will be able to withstand an SEC season.
You take a look at that schedule. There's one point where you're facing like 4 of the better SEC teams right in a row. This team showed real heart last year. Are they going to need to show that same kind of heart, trying to get through that portion of the schedule again this year?
Yeah, let's not forget 3 of those on the road, right? At LSU, at Miami. You get Texas at home. That's preseason number 1 in the country. And then you got Texas A&M. You got a bye week in between there in late September that might help heading into the Texas game. But just think, if Florida could somehow be 4-0 in September, I mean, that Texas atmosphere will be electric. Arch Manning against DJ Lagway, that has a potential to be a real marquee game and statement game. And, for Texas, I think that would be a really, if you looked at their schedule even last year, I don't know if they quite had that taste of going into a stadium like the Swamp.
Right.
So I think that atmosphere could play a big role, certainly for a school like Texas going in there and Arch Manning. So it has potential to be a very exciting stretch, but Florida's going to have to execute and play well. But I think Billy Napier, for the first time, when you look at his demeanor, he seems a lot more calm, a lot more settled, feels a lot better, I think, about this team than some of his previous teams. And I think it's because 4 years recruiting depth, they've kind of built it more through high school than the transfer portal, but those guys have grown up a little bit.
And, there's a lot of pundits that have Florida fairly high up in these preseason polls, and in their preseason polls, they don't, mean a whole lot. But does that put any extra pressure on them? Does it put any pressure on Napier and the team to perform really well right out of the gate?
Yeah, I would say if they were top 10, I think they're sitting in the weeds pretty good between 15 and 20, and that's probably where they should be. Because, like I said, still a little bit of the quarterback uncertainty with DJ. Fingers crossed, like I said, I think he'll play. I just wonder what kind of quarterback are we going to see? Are we going to see the same dynamic quarterback as last year? Or is he going to have to, play through some things? Now, DJ admitted he played through some things last year, too, and still played pretty well. We have seen him throw, and he's throwing the ball really well. I just wonder about the mobility a little bit. But I do think that, expectations, I think they're about right for where this team is. And I think, if anything, maybe they'll carry a little chip thinking, hey, look, we feel like we can play with anyone. We can be that top 10 level team. Let's go out and prove it.
The atmosphere in the Swamp is always electric down there. If they get off to a good start, you talked briefly about the Texas game, how it would be. Can that crowd, that almost 12th man, I know that's Texas A&M's thing, we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
But can they help carry that team? Is that crowd, do you expect that kind of fervor from these Gator fans as we head into this season?
Well, I think the key when you looked at the Swamp last year, it's about getting off to a good start and staying in the game, right? Because you saw against Miami and Texas A&M, that wasn't the case. And that crowd can turn on you if you're not playing well. So I think it's double-edged sword there, but you got to get off to a good start in a lot of these games. And if you do, and if you kind of show the crowd that you're, obviously playing with energy and into it, they're going to get behind you. And it does help. I mean, it is, one of the great atmospheres in the SEC, up there, obviously with Death Valley and LSU. In terms of the crowd noise, Texas A&M, obviously you mentioned before, but it is definitely one of those places where the crowd noise can have an effect in the game. I mean, even on procedural issues, right, like false starts, things like that. So I've seen it firsthand there. So definitely, will be important for them to continue off that momentum, play well at home like they did against LSU and Ole Miss last year. And find a way to steal a few games on the road as well. I mean, that's, I think that's going to be the bigger issue going into the season because you do have a lot of tough road tests.
And you don't want to, obviously each game is its own separate entity. You don't want to chalk up a win in that LIU game, but really they should win that one fairly easily. What do you want to see out of this team between the practices now and that first game that will tell you, as somebody who's watched this team for years and knows about them, is they are on the right path. We've seen this, and this, and this is why we're going to have a successful season this year.
Yeah, I think on the defensive side, the playmaking, which we saw a little bit in the second half of last season, sacks, turnovers, Can you do that? Can you affect the ball? Can you get after the quarterback on offense? I think, the balance, the run game, big plays, deep throws, kind of saw that in the second half of last season as well. And I think if you see that, then offensive line protecting well and building off what they did at the end of last year. I think if you see that, then I think that, it's going to go well. And special teams too, operationally. There were still a few miscues here and there last year. You look back to that Georgia game and that one bad snap on the field goal that proved to be pretty costly. There was the Tennessee game where they didn't line up properly at the end of the half for a field goal. So the operation on special teams too, you want to see that completely clean this season. And if all that comes together, then I think this is potentially a 9 to 10 win team.
If this with their schedule, and given how hard their schedule is, because look, we some folks have called this the toughest schedule between last year and this year, the toughest 2-year schedule any team has ever faced in the history of college football. If they can get to that 9-win mark, are they a playoff team in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to weigh it compared to the rest of the country. But I think they'll be in position to be that kind of a team if they can get to, 9 or 10. We've seen, though, the 3 losses have really hurt a lot of teams. They hurt some SEC teams last year because that perception in that room is still based on wins and losses more than it is schedule strength. It has been. And maybe there will be a shift in regard to that someday, but it doesn't seem like we're quite there yet with that. But I do think, 10 wins, I think they're in pretty good shape. You said Tennessee got in with 10 wins last year. I mean, I think 9 or 8, it might be a little bit dicier because sometimes when I say 9 and 10, maybe I'm including the bowl game. Not necessarily, in terms of 8 or 9 in the regular season could be more of a realistic number in regards to that. But we'll see. We'll see how it transpires. Listen, does Gunnar Stockton scare you with Georgia? I mean, I think Georgia's a little vulnerable this year. Tennessee's quarterback situation, do they scare you? I think the front end, I mean, you get through the front end of the schedule, with only 1 or 2 losses. I think the back end of the schedule, sets up a chance for some momentum. Now you got to go to Kentucky, you got to go to Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin is always dangerous, but they lose Jackson Dart too. So right. DJ Lagway, you come in there, provided he stays healthy, you come in there with a more experienced quarterback, more experienced line of scrimmage. I think you're going to be in position to be favored in some of those games in the second half of the season if you get off to a good start.
Yeah, I would have to say, looking at their schedule and their personnel, if this team is 9-3 in the regular season, I would be shocked if they didn't make the playoff. I would think somebody, granted, I don't know what the other teams are going to do, but just looking at that schedule, if the NCAA and the committee is really serious about rewarding teams for playing good opponents, then a 9-3 Florida team with that schedule had better make the playoffs.
Well, I think part of the problem last year, when you looked at the analysis of it, right? Ole Miss lost to Kentucky, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. So I think it depends on who you lose to, too. I think that's the point. Do you have those losses in games that are perceived, that you're favored against? And I think the committee kind of holds that against you. But if you lose to teams that, obviously maybe you're an underdog or that are a little stronger than you, that playoff-worthy teams, then I think 9-3 gets you in. I just think it just depends on how it shakes out, too. I mean, I think each schedule is its own entity in each season in that regard, and each resume, shall we say, is its own entity.
Kevin Brockway, Gainesville Sun, Florida beat writer. Really appreciate you taking the time and talking with us today. It was a great conversation. Going to be interesting to see how the Florida Gators fare in that first half of the season. I'm sure we'll be calling on you again as things progress down the road.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, I appreciate it, and it's always a lot of fun, and we will keep in touch.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Kevin. We will be back with Sports IQ right after a quick timeout.
We continue our countdown here, the top 25 as put together by producer Tony. A couple of teams yesterday, and Tony, we're now at team that's 18th in the country. Who you got?
For 18, Larry, I'm picking out the Indiana Hoosiers. Look, they had just a tremendous season last year. Regular season, 11-1, made the college football playoffs, played Notre Dame hard. They had a great season. Don't think they'll be able to repeat that performance, but let's not count out Coach Kurt Cignetti just yet. He has just been a master motivator up there. They went heavy in the portal last year. They did it again this year. New starting quarterback is Fernando Mendoza. He was Cal's starter last year. He completed about 69% of his passes, threw for over 3,000 yards, and he's going to need to be that good again. They've also added 3 starting offensive linemen and a starting tight end from the portal. So once again, you see Cignetti dipping in there. Last season, their defense was stellar. Number 2 in the nation in total defense, number 6 in scoring defense. They were number 1 against the run. They're going to be strong again yet this year. Lost a few key pieces, but all Big Ten star Mikhail Kamara is back. He had 15 tackles for loss last year. He had 10 sacks. They are going to be pretty impressive on the defensive side. The question will be if the offense can keep up with them. The schedule sets up really nicely, Larry. Their non-conference schedule is not a factor, right? They don't play anybody out of conference, but they also don't face Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Washington in conference play. Now they do have to go to Penn State, Oregon, and Iowa, and they play Illinois at home. That Illinois Indiana game is really going to be something people are going to want to see. Who would have thought that 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I don't see 11-1, but 9-3, not out of the question for this team. I don't think they make a return to the playoff, but still a pretty good season, a very impressive season by Indiana standards.
Yeah, and it's a team, again, it's hard to think that of them as a football power, but they haven't had back-to-back winning seasons in more than 30 years. 1993, 1994, they went 8-4 and then 6-5. And so, they set the record last year with 11 wins. That was a school record in Kurt Cignetti's first year, as you talked about. A lot of new pieces last year, and they got the same, like you said, this year. And I think the difference is this year that maybe, Indiana's not going to surprise anybody. It's not going to happen like they did last year. They kind of caught folks off guard. But to be ranked preseason, is impressive, and it's rare. It just never happens. By the way, not to cast a bad omen, but last time they were in the AP top 25 in the preseason was 2021. They went 2-10. Ouch. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. Okay. Love that. Great points for number 18. Who you have at number 17?
Number 17 is a rebound team who could possibly be this year's version of Indiana. Look, Utah had all kinds of struggles last year, right? The last 2 seasons, Utah started more quarterbacks than you can name. I mean, all I know is Cam Rising was one of them. And he couldn't finish the season because he was injured, right? So the old saying, if you have 2 quarterbacks, mean you don't have one, that was true there in Utah. Last 2 years, they were just 13-12, Larry. So they have found, hopefully, a way to fix that quarterback issue. And they did it by raiding New Mexico Lobos. They picked up both their offensive coordinator in Jason Beck and their quarterback in Devion Napier. And much like Indiana last season, Utah went heavy in the portal. They've got 21 new players they've added to the roster.
Wow. And that's a program that really had been pretty consistent as a winner in recent years. And so the fact they've struggled, like you said, just, only 13-12, dipping down to 5-7 last year. You take away the COVID year and they played only 5 games because so many games were wiped out. They hadn't been under 500. You've got to go all the way back to 2013 when Kyle Whittingham was still early in his tenure there. But he's somebody that's been there for 20 years now, and one of those veteran coaches. I don't think he gets as overlooked now, but I also don't think he gets the credit that he deserves.
Exactly, and that's the other reason I've got them at 17. He is an outstanding coach. He finds ways to use his players to the best of their ability. He's going to use Napier and have him make big plays. They're going to use him on the ground, expect Utah to be a heavy running team, especially early part of the season. The schedule sets up nicely. The Big 12 is a really good conference, but it's not the SEC or Big 10, right? they get Texas Tech, K-State, Colorado, and Arizona State at home. So that's a big plus. Their big non-conference game is UCLA. They do have to go on the road to face UCLA, but I still think that this team should get back to 8-4, 9-3, and get a nice bowl game. And look, if things break like they did for Indiana, it's not out of the question to see them playing in the Big 12 title game for a chance at a college football playoff berth.
Yeah, you're right. They've been so consistent over the years. No question. Love that. So Utah at number 17. We'll continue our countdown tomorrow. Okay, our moment of awe is up next.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
Okay, time now for a moment of awe, and it's Venus Williams who will be back on the court there at the U.S. Open for the first time since 2023. And for the 25th time of her career, she was given a wild card invitation, one of only 8 women to receive that. At age 45, Venus Williams will become the oldest player on the singles side at a U.S. Open since 47-year-old Renee Richards took part back in 1981. Venus, a 2-time winner, would love to see her get a third. Truly a moment of awe. And we appreciate our guests stopping by, Alessandra Pontbriand and also Kevin Brockway. Appreciate you as well. It's a Sports IQ. We'll do it one more time this week. That's Friday. Make it a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.